Welcome to The Lift Experience, a podcast to discuss all things foiling in the United Arab Emirates. Join us as we share the stoke of our foiling journey in the Middle East. This is our little project that we've been discussing. We're calling it The Lift Experience. And it's basically just a little kind of podcast project to kind of discuss foiling in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, where we live, and just to kind of discuss the kind of conditions we get. And yeah, I think there's a lot of podcasts out there, really interesting stuff, but in a way it's a little bit irrelevant to us because generally we have quite poor conditions here, I think, as far as riding goes. We
certainly do, Sean. We certainly do.
But we're all on this foiling journey, and we're frothing since day one. So, we're just trying to find whatever we can ride. And there is wind and there is waves. You just need to go hunting for them. You need to know what to look for. And if you time it right, we get a lot of, not a lot. In winter, we get a fair amount of fronts that pass through. So it's, let's have a chat about it and see where it goes.
Let's get into it. We live in an interesting part of the world, don't we, Sean?
Definitely.
I think when you think of the Middle East, you probably don't think it's renowned for its conditions, but we have our days, don't we?
Definitely.
And I think hopefully in this podcast, perhaps we can explore that a little bit and share some of the fun that we've been having. And I think, like you said, the community is growing at a pretty quick rate, actually. So perhaps there's a place for us to have a little chat and a platform for some discussion.
For sure.
So
definitely. Yeah. And I think foiling, even though you can do a lot here, you can surf, you can kite, you can do all that kind of stuff. But foiling, for me anyway, like it's at a point where foiling is allowing me to do so much more than I would otherwise be able to do. So that's why I'm frothing.
You are, mate, and you're doing incredibly well, I've got to say.
Thanks.
From my perspective as a former windsurfer, still windsurfer, but that's my background. Living out here, when you're looking at those 10, 12 knot days, there's not really a lot of opportunity for decent sailing. So, since foiling's come along, for me in the last 14 months, I'd say, it's completely transformed my water time, my experience on the water, and I am just absolutely engrossed. It's taken over my life in many respects.
In a good way.
I've in a very good way. I've had one windsurf since taking up foiling, and that was a 20+ knot day, and that was over a year ago. So foiling for me at the minute has absolutely just led the way, and I'm buzzing about the different aspects of foiling. It's not just wing foiling. You're heavily into your prone foiling. That's on the radar for me, as we've discussed. And I think there is the potential in the UAE for that as well. You've showcased that particularly up your way. But the wake foiling, there's a few of us who've been getting into that as well, which is great fun. There's so much opportunity for it. And like you say, when you've got these okay conditions, and we have our days which are pretty good, but it's opening up a whole new world of just getting on the water and having fun.
I agree 100%. And I think that now would actually be a really good time if you can give us like just a very quick introduction, like who you are, when you got here, and how you reached this point where you are literally frothing every day to get out on the water.
Sure, mate. So my name's Ash, 38, father of 2. Been in Dubai now for, about 9 years. 8 years of that trying to windsurf, not really happening that much out here. A little bit of surfing here and there as well, but nothing too much. Originally from Torquay on the south coast of the UK, Devon. Father was a windsurfer, keen windsurfer, so I grew up by the water, doing a bit of that, bit of surfing up in North Devon as well. As most teenagers go, when you get a bit older, you find your other things, and then found myself in the Dominican Republic. I think I was about 19, and they had a bit of windsurf gear on the beach, and away I went, and I just found the bug again for that. So my history is windsurfing. Ended up doing a bit of instructing in Greece for a while, and I'm now a teacher, and I found myself out in the Middle East where it's not particularly windy, it's not particularly wavy, but the sun is shining.
Yeah.
So it's
the sun is
not
always
a bad
shining.
place to be, is it? It's always shining, too much sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sean,
exactly.
tell us a bit about your history. I know you're probably a little bit more experienced than me across the various aspects of foiling and whatever. But what's your background?
That's awesome to hear your story. That's everyone's got their own version of a story how they ended up. That's awesome. So for me, I'm South African, born and raised in Durban on the East Coast. Came to the UAE 17 years ago. And pretty much in my early life, up until maybe mid-20s, I was a bodyboarder. So easy to do that in South Africa, a lot of good conditions for that. In fact, my parents were diehard windsurfers. We used to go on trips with them, and I kind of started windsurfing maybe when I was about 10. But bodyboarding was my thing, and eventually I got here, and there was just so difficult to get excited about the conditions here after being in South Africa. So bodyboarding became skimboarding, which was great fun because, you ride small waves on the beach, which there is a fair amount of. And then, skimboarding became surfing, and I surfed for a couple of years. And then I was in South Africa in, I think, 2018 when it started for me, July 2018. I was visiting my sister on the west coast of Cape Town, and she's good friends with the Signature guys. And the one day they were foiling, I'm like, what's this thing? I feel like it was before there was this kind of global acceptance of foiling. It was kind of just before it exploded. And the guy said, yeah, have a ride. And I got on this thing and I paddled, and the first wave I caught, it threw me off, and I'm just like, what was that? I needed to know more. So like on the spot, I bought a set, and July 2018. And then from there, led me from prone foiling to, I learned in the wave pool in the UAE because there were no waves at the time. So I was like, go to the wave pool. From the wave pool, I went to surfing waves occasionally. Eventually, I ended up thinking, how can I ride this thing? I went behind a boat, as everyone does. That became a bit expensive. Then I thought, let me learn kite foiling. So then I started kite lessons, and I realized very quickly I wasn't going to jump straight to kite foiling because that's one of probably the hardest of all the disciplines, I'm going to say. So then I started basic kite surfing. That led me on to kite foiling. And then eventually when wing foiling happened, actually I wasn't wing foiling when it first happened, but then my friend in Abu Dhabi, Fabian, he said to me, you got to do this. You got to wing foil. I'm like, I'm enjoying the prone foiling. He's like, wing foil, bro, wing foil. So that's it. I bought a board secondhand. I bought a wing. I bought secondhand board, secondhand wing in case I didn't enjoy it. And little did I know, that was the game changer right there. It's like
the start of the journey.
That's it. Yeah. So now there's various sizes of foils and boards and wings, and it's such an awesome discipline to you can choose which size foil you want based on the wind or the conditions of the waves. What do you want to do? A lot of options there. So that's the thing I've been doing the most. Sorry, it's a bit of a long introduction there, but I feel like for me,
just hearing about how you got into foiling. It's amazing. I think my experience of getting into foiling was pretty similar. Where I came off the water one day and saw a mutual friend of ours, and he just finished foiling, and he just said, "Ash, why are you still windsurfing? I've sold all my windsurf gear, or I'm in the process of selling my windsurf gear. Trust me, try it." And my initial reaction was, oh, well, I've got plenty of time. I'm in no rush to try foiling. I've still got my windsurfing. And I left it for that summer. So that was probably April, May. Went away that summer and then just stewed on it all summer. And I was like, oh my Lord, I need to get on this foiling. The more research I was doing, the more I was thinking, oh, this looks so versatile. And, so I came back and did the same as you. Bought some secondhand gear. And the market still isn't very big out here, you wouldn't say, for secondhand gear, but I managed to get my hands on a 6 meter, your old board, and then,
which was actually shaped by Fabian, the guy I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Proof of how small the community is. Yeah,
exactly. That's how small it is. Yeah, and then an 1800 sort of low aspect foil, and it took me a few sessions. I was going out in our typical sort of 10, 12 knot conditions where, and everyone's going, oh, you need to go out when there's a good breeze. And I totally agree with that. You need to go out when there's a little bit of resistance in the wing. And I was trying to sort of pump without too much there. But after, 4 or 5 sessions in these 10 to 12 knots, I think I sort of cracked it one day and, that was it. I was just like, I need more of this because I could just feel the potential under your feet. It's and someone said, what's it like, Ash? And I just said it's like windsurfing or surfing in like 4D. There's so many more sensations going on, and it really had me hooked, like it hooked you, and like I think it hooks most people who give it a go. There's quite a few friends of mine now who are pretty keen to get involved. It's an addictive sport from the moment you feel that little bit of lift on the foil. You're there. It hooks you.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a potential for anyone to enjoy it. Yes, there's obstacles. Yeah. It's overwhelming to buy the gear because first of all, it's expensive. Second of all, there's the fear that you're going to buy the wrong thing, or maybe even that you're going to hurt yourself. There's all these things that you've got to get through. But, geez, I mean, so many people I've spoken to will tell me, guys who foil, that it's the most fun you can have in the ocean. So, and I agree. I feel 100% the same way. Like, if we're out there and there's a bunch of guys surfing, I don't want to take anything away from surfing, but if there's a bunch of guys surfing, they might get, let's say, in an hour, 3 waves. And for me, I would be on maybe 10 waves, and each of those is like a 2 or a 3, 2 for 1, 3 for 1. So I feel there's so much more riding ability, and just so fun. Of course, it is expensive, and you got to kind of get over that hurdle. But I feel like if, it's similar for me with kiting. Like, I kind of always wanted to kite, but I just never had the push to go and do the lessons. And you end up missing out on so many years of this like great sport. And anyone who's listening that is sitting on the fence, I urge you to manage that fear inside you that's trying to talk you out of it. No one's saying be reckless and just buy a piece of your first thing you find, but do a little bit of research, and you're welcome to contact one of us if you need some suggestions. But get a piece of gear, preferably secondhand, so you don't spend too much. Give yourself a few days on the water to get through the learning phase, because once you get up and riding, it's got massive potential to give you infinite stoke.
It has. And I would say that you don't necessarily need to have a water sports background even to feel that sensation and to feel how amazing the sport is, really.
For sure.
So get out there, try a lesson. It might not be for you, but I'd struggle to see how someone wouldn't enjoy it after a couple of sessions. Even if it's just to get on the water, feel refreshed, and try and feel that sensation. It's people will enjoy it. Regardless of your background. If you've got a water sports background, brilliant. Add it to your toolkit, like you say, with whether you're a kiter or windsurfer, surfer, whatever. It's a whole new sensation that I don't think you want to miss out on. And particularly moving forwards, we've seen our community grow enormously, and you've been involved for probably 2, 3, 4 years now in foiling in the UAE.
Yeah, 4.5, I think.
Yeah. And I'm coming sort of 14, 15 months, and even in that time, there's there's a lot more people on the water these days. And I dare say there's been more wingers on some sessions than there has been kiters, and I never thought I'd say that. So it's really gaining in popularity. And another thing for me as well, I'm a bit of a gear geek as well. I really like the aspect ratios and looking at how different gear affects performance and that sort of stuff. So if anybody who's listening is into that sort of stuff as well, there's a real there's a lot of exciting chat you can have if that's what you think.
Get your geek on.
Exactly.
So tell us what you're riding at the moment. Yeah, so tell us what you're riding at the moment.
At the moment, I am on an Eagle high aspect 1090. So 1090 being the square centimetre. On an 85 centimetre mast, an 85 litre board, and then I've got an 8 metre and a 5.5. And I think that covers me fairly well for the UE. I did have a slightly lower aspect wing. I've still got it as well, so I can get out on that lower aspect wing, which is a 1780. I can get that one up in maybe 8 knots with the 8 metre. And then the Eagle, I probably need somewhere around 11 knots to get that going comfortably.
Nice.
Again, you discover gear as you go, and you do your research, and you start on this piece, and you think, oh, that's great, but I'm seeing these guys who might be going a little bit quicker than me, or you're reading the magazines or the online publications, and you're thinking, oh, that might be quite a nice upgrade. So I've made a couple of upgrades over the last year and a bit, but that's where I found myself at the moment with the high aspect 9.5 ratio. I don't want to get too technical, but to be honest with you, I think initially it's just get on the water. The progression is really quick. And I'm sure you'd agree, Sean. It's it doesn't take long until you get pretty comfortable on the foil, and then you're jibing, you're manoeuvring, everything becomes second nature almost. So so what about you, Sean? What's your gear at the moment?
Awesome. So I'm riding at the moment a 75 litre board, which I've been happy with, but I feel like I can go a little bit bigger. I know that's generally not something you hear people say. It's normally a race to the bottom to see who can be on the smallest board and the smallest foil and all that kind of thing. But we'll save that for another discussion. There's a whole can of worms that we can open there.
There is.
But so since I've now got 3 boards. So I've got the small board that I surf on, 28 litres. Try to wing on that. It's impossible, FYI. I surf on that board and I kite foil on that board. And then I've got a 54 litre, which is a new one. That one is incredible, but you need 14 to 15 knots to launch. And then I've got the 75, which I'm riding. So it's 75. I'm riding the 1200, the 7Cs, which is 1200 centimeter, 7.5 aspect. That's really become my favorite. After my go-to was the Phantom 1480, which was a 6.4 aspect or something. So I went a little bit higher, 7.5, and I'm finding it can do everything. You can surf, you can wing, I think I've even kite foiled it once. Anyways, very nice foil. And regarding the wings, usually I'd use a 7. I mean, that's the one I use most of the time. I've got a 5, 6, and a 7. But the 7 I use 90% of the time. So, you know what? It's bulky, it's cumbersome, but there's no shame. If you're up and riding, you're having fun. So
it's all about being on foil, mate, isn't it? That's the key.
100%.
And I think you very quickly, you see these guys back in Europe or Maui, Australia, and they're on these 3.5s. I mean, that's pretty unrealistic for us guys out here. But it's amazing how quickly you become adept at using the bigger wings, and eventually they don't feel quite so big. And then when you do come back onto a smaller wing, it feels like you're hanging onto a handkerchief, and it feels amazing. But you quickly become used to the bigger gear, and I think we definitely need it out here. So yeah, good.
Yeah, I think as you said, being on the foil is that's what it's all about. And if you're going to struggle every time you fall, you're gonna struggle to launch and burn your energy. I mean, what's the point? Riding with a big wing in the waves is tiring because it's quite a cumbersome thing. But I mean, you can figure it out. Anyways, one last thing I wanted to ask you about is maybe just name some of the spots where you ride and how the conditions are. Because I know you ride more on Dubai side, whereas I'm Northern Emirates, Sharjah, Quain. So in a minute or two, you can just tell me briefly where you ride. And
so we've got a spot called Jebel Ali, which is where they were building a new palm. I think that's going to restart again soon, but that is a really fantastic flat water spot, close to the Abu Dhabi border. So it's south of Dubai. You tend to pick up a couple more knots down there for some weird reason as well. So if anyone's thinking of getting into that as well, probably that's the place to go. A few guys running lessons out of there as well. It can get busy on a windy day, but you can always find your little bit of flat water, and it's a enclosed, safe area. And there's a centre down there and what have you, running out of the hotel, and it's a great spot. It's a great spot to start off with. And
these boats that can come and rescue you if you get into trouble.
There is, I think you've got to pay 50 dirhams, 100 dirhams or something to the guys, but nice to know that's there. It's a really safe. It's not a deep. It's plenty deep for your foil, but it's not a deep, intimidating location. So that's where I spent quite a bit of my time initially, just getting used to the foil. And I'll still pop down that way as well, to share a ride with some friends, which is always fun. And they do occasionally have the wakeboard boats down there as well, which are quite good to jump on the back of. Nice. Moving up the coast, back up this way, a spot that's become really popular. We call it Mermaids. If you look on the map, it's Tent Jumeirah restaurant, and it picks up the swell that runs between the Palm and the World Islands. So if you've got a westerly swell, it filters through. You've got a relatively flat launch and then out into the bay, and it really does ramp up there quite nicely. So we've been getting some pretty good sessions. It's not frequent. It's 3, 4 times, 5 times a season that place works really well. But that's been the spot. You've also got Surf Beach, Sunset Beach. You can launch to the left and go out behind the surfers. That also catches a really nice bit of swell, but it's just much more enclosed. You've got 100, 150 meters before you jibe in to come back round again. So it's a pretty tight section, but it does really pick up a nice wave in there.
And a nice backdrop with the Burj Al Arab there.
Oh, great backdrop. It's a lovely spot, but probably slightly more advanced, confident guys who are confident on the turn. I think I only went there when I was just about jibing, and I struggled. I was on foil picking up some swell, but if you're not comfortable on the jibe, you're probably going to spend quite a bit of time in the water there. Same as Mermaids, but you do your training down in Jebel Ali effectively, and then you branch out a little bit here. Nesnas is a popular kiting spot, and that's slightly up the coast again from Mermaids. That's a great spot. Does pick up a little bit of swell as well. Can get a little bit busy with kiters. Same as Kite Beach, just down the coast as well. So there's numerous spots in this area. If it's looking like a light wind day, we might just nip down to Jebel Ali and just get on foil. If we think there's a little bit of swell coming with it, we'll do a little survey around the coast, see what's going on, and try and jump out in the in the 1 meter, 2 meter swell if we're lucky to feel that sensation on the wave. That's generally where I sort of tend to go. There are a few other little spots dotted around, but I say that's the top 3 or 4 for us at the moment. But again, the beauty of foiling is that we don't know all the spots perhaps yet. There's a few spots we're talking about that will probably pick up a little bit of swell if it comes from the north and whatever. So we're quite excited to have the opportunity to explore.
Definitely.
So yeah, what about you up there? I know the Kite Beach in Al Quain is, I think, your preferred spot. It looks amazing. I've briefly ventured up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think there are a lot of spots up this coast here. I mean, from Sharjah you have Ajman, and then there's another little piece of Sharjah. The guys surf there. It's called Hamria. I haven't ridden. I think I've maybe ridden there once, but that'd also be very nice. And then after that, you get Al Quain, and then of course Kite Beach Centre, where I ride most of the time. I like Al Quain firstly because it's closest to my house. It's actually closer for me to drive from home to there than it is to drive to the beach in Sharjah, because I'm quite far out of the city. So, plus of course we have the weather station and the camera there, which makes it. I mean, you can sit. I work from home, so you sit on the computer and you're busy working, and you got your eyes on the camera, on the wind. You can see exactly what's happening, and you don't have to waste your time if there's no action. But if the wind picks up, you can, put your phone on do not disturb or whatever you need to do. And the conditions there are really good. When the wind is blowing, it's because it sticks out into the ocean. Like if you actually look at it on a map, it sticks kind of out into the water. It picks up a lot of the ocean swell, more than I think any other part of the UAE that I've seen. But the downside is because it's kind of a bit too far east, a lot of that wind that comes down the Gulf, Abu Dhabi, and I think Jebel Ali as well, because Jebel Ali catches some of that Abu Dhabi wind, that wind often doesn't reach Quain, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that because we're quite high up here, you get this north wind that comes down. And I think this is something we're going to talk about in detail in a future episode, because it's just so interesting. And a lot of people don't pay attention to the direction of the wind and what kind of conditions it brings. And anyway, so there we surf when there's waves. When the wind is light, we wing. When the wind is strong, we wing, we kite. And that's the main place for me, to be honest. There are a few other places as you go further north from there. There's a secret spot. We won't really talk about that, but it's also amazing. It's a flat water spot that heads out and you get waves on the outside. It's amazing. But actually, I did most of my learning probably in Jebel Ali as well. It's flat waters where you want to be, where you learn. And once you get over that hurdle, then it becomes a little bit of a curse in a way, because once you start riding swell and you start getting that feeling of actually, now I'm using the wing and I'm riding out, so I don't have to paddle or whatever. Like in terms of surfing, I don't have to paddle and duck dive. You actually wing out. And when you get out, you turn, and you actually, even if the wind's very light, you turn onto the swell and the wing is already flagged. You're not even using it. And then the foil is just using the ocean swell completely, and you just left and right and left and right. And then eventually, as it reaches the shore, it becomes a face. You can ride it out, and then you tack back out. So if you get that right, it's just a conveyor belt. I mean, it's in 2 hours, in a 2-hour session, you're riding the whole time. So that's kind of what I look for when I read the charts every morning when I wake up, is these kind of sessions I'm looking for. But no,
I'd agree. You do get to a certain stage in your foiling journey where you become more comfortable on those waves, and that is super addictive. And I think we're both there at the minute. I'm still more than happy to go and get my fix on some flat water, but if there's a lump out there, I think most guys who are comfortable there now are going to be looking for that lump, and like you say, flagging the wing and surfing effectively is some feeling, isn't it? So
exactly. Well, I mean, cool. I think we've had an awesome discussion about just a taster of what foiling has to offer. So I'm looking forward to more discussions in the future. And I'd also just like to say that, disclaimer, we are not pros and we don't know everything. So
absolutely,
if we get something wrong, or if we, it's just our opinions that we're giving here.
totally, Sean. This is well, it's a bit of a fun couple of amateur guys having a chat, and we'll see where we go with it. But it's been fun chatting, Sean. I've enjoyed that, and
Awesome.
I think we've got lots to talk about, as you said. So
Awesome.
we will reconvene soon, and
Cool.
we'll get chatting
See you in the
again.
next one.
Okay, see you soon.